Welcome to your weekend, News Radio 600 Kogo. I'm Sully. San Diego Business Weekend's on the air. Huge show today. We'll have Mayor Kevin Faulconer with us in about 45 minutes. And I'm going to try to answer some of the questions that we did this week on our special broadcast that we did on Thursday night. I think it was Thursday night. We're going to try to do more of those where I do open phone lines and answer your questions and just let you guys just take the phone lines over, because I know there's a lot of uncertainty going on with respect to what's happening, not only in these markets, but what's going on with the economy and stimulus and such like that. What's interesting here, and I want to point this out because I was on a couple of national networks this week, and I pointed this out. At the same time, I also talked about this on Kogo, as well as KUSI this week. And that's that this current stimulus package, the price tag of $2.2 trillion, is around or represents around 10% of the U.S. GDP. It's probably not going to be the only stimulus. You have to think of it in terms of, and of course, it depends on the velocity in which the COVID-19 virus can be contained. And so another stimulus bill just might be necessary to get the economy running. But this, in my opinion, and I said this the other day, should not be thought of as a stimulus bill. You got to think of it, as I mentioned yesterday, as disaster insurance to benefit those most hard hit. The idea, again, is to freeze time for a month or so. Let people come out of this without huge amounts of debts, without being evicted or foreclosed upon, or, God forbid, starving. And it would ideally produce a V-shaped recovery, if not just in the stock market, which I think is exactly what's going to happen, but it may create a V-shaped recovery also in the economy. But keep in mind, and here's what I want to deal with, because a lot of you are complaining about a thing called the B word, the bailout. Because let's face it, this stimulus also gives aid to small business and corporate America alike. Talk about small business for a minute. Small business represents 66% of all business in this country. Most of our businesses are small business. The biggest taxpayer in this country, the biggest and largest employer in this country, oftentimes the least incentivized. So we're happy about helping small business. But what about that big business? Is it accurate to call the part of this $2.2 trillion stimulus a congressional bailout for corporate America? Not this time around. I don't think so. I think you got to be careful about calling this a bailout, because unlike the 2008 financial crisis, we're in a different spot now. We saw government propping up ill-behaving U.S. banks and Wall Street. This is not that. Nobody overspent money. Nobody overinvested money. Nobody did anything to cause this situation other than a virus, which can be debated on how that started. And all of this is preemptive that the Fed's doing and that Congress is doing. Back in 2008, we were digging ourselves out of a hole. It was a completely different story. Millions of people lost their jobs. They lost their homes, sometimes lost their businesses, which meant more people lost their homes, right? I mean, look, I own two millennials. They're still trying to come to terms with the events of the last time. It stirs up images when you think bailout or corporate stimulus of greedy businesses acting recklessly. That's not what's happening here. Businesses aren't enriching themselves this time. This is not going to be a stock buyback. In fact, there's stopgaps to prevent that. In other words, let's face it, bailout is a dirty word. This is not a bailout like the actual bailout of the financial crisis, where, again, companies simply start doing stock buybacks, which help their shareholders. 70% of our economy is based on what? You hear me say it all the time. Consumer spending, like every other economy in the world. All right? The GDP, again, you hear me say this all the time, is the report card to our economy. It's an absolute function of consumer spend. So when you're giving corporate stimulus, you're helping them keep people employed. Tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of folks are employed by corporations. This ain't no corporate bailout cupcake. It's not. And I know that bristles some of you, that some corporations are going to be receiving money. But look at how many people the airline industry actually employs. This is a big deal. By the way, you can catch me every morning on Good Morning San Diego on KUSI, as well as the San Diego Morning News. as well as Big Biz Show every night, nationwide, coast to coast with Russ T. Nails. Of course, our next episode of On the Air with Sully, Little Tommy, and Rusty Nails appears tonight at 5 p.m. on KUSI, so I hope you'll tune into that. And then also after the program today, after Kevin Faulconer interview today on San Diego Business Weekend, me and producer Lady Mary takes this broadcast that we tape at the Jump Television Studios for television. So while we're live on the radio, we're taping for TV. That goes up on the Kogo website, kogo.com, keyword Sully. You can actually watch while we're doing the show and so on and so forth. Christina Gustin, I talked into taking more time out of her weekends, as she always does. UBS Financial, RKG Wealth Management. I can't tell you how many people I've referred to her. She is not a sponsor of this program, so this is not. She's got no skin in the game here. I don't have to say nice things about her. I say nice things about her because she knows what she's doing, and she's so kind with her time. Christina, thanks so much for coming back with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, talk about this crazy week. We technically speaking. So, I'd like to debate this with you. I don't know. Maybe we're not going to debate. I don't know where you stand on this. But by some accounts, the Dow Jones on Thursday entered a new bull market, killing an 11-day bear market with a 21% increase across the indices over 3 days. That sounds like a lot of bull to me, because in my mind, and I think I'm a bit of a market purist, you have to actually exit a bear market when you put in a new recent high, which would mean that we would have to close at 29,552 on the Dow, which is what we closed on February 12th, for us to actually achieve a real bull market. But it certainly is nice to see us testing a bottom. It certainly is nice to see the appetite for investors be so robust that we're seeing days like we saw on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I would really caution anyone against trying to trade this market. We're seeing unprecedented levels of volatility right now. The floor was dropping out for the last couple of weeks of the market. It was incredibly illiquid, dislocated. It was a very challenging atmosphere because we have a total data deficit right now in terms of what the impact of all these restrictions will be. There was a lot of optimism, I think, about the preliminary earnings report that came out from Nike earlier this week, saying that they hadn't been that impacted and that their numbers were still looking good going into this crisis. That's so preliminary. And, there was this huge rally. I love the hyperbole in the media about, the best 3-day winning streak since the 1930s.
Well, percentage-wise it was, but this isn't the same. I mean, this is so funny. They're acting like this is just a regular week. It's not. I mean, we're in the middle of wartime, so to speak. This is not. You can't compare this with summertime. Everybody's out on vacation, and oh my gosh, didn't we just have a great 3 days on Wall Street? I don't think you can.
Totally agree with you.
I don't think you can compare to 1930.
Yeah, no, I think the key questions right now are how quickly is economic activity going to normalize, and how much will the policy responses be able to limit corporate bankruptcies and job losses?
Right.
So UBS has put together 3 scenarios, kind of an optimistic, a base case scenario, and also a more pessimistic scenario. And we don't know. We feel like the markets are pricing in kind of a central scenario right now where the virus generally peaks around mid-April. The most severe restrictions are lifted around mid-May, and we're able to then start kind of this U-shaped recovery that you keep hearing about.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of data that needs to come out between now and then. Earnings season is coming up. All these large corporations are starting to yank their guidance, saying we don't have any idea what the numbers are going to look like. And I think there's still more downside in the market as that data starts to develop.
Well, I certainly think that we're going to test a bottom again. I mean, if history shows us anything, go back to 2008, go back to 1987, go back to the Great Depression. We don't just bounce off of a market crash, and we've just witnessed a market crash, 100%. We're not just going to bounce back off a market crash and then continue going up. We have to test a bottom here. There's people that are feeling once bitten, twice shy. People are going to sell in this. And keep in mind, there's only one thing that makes stock go down, and that's people selling it. More people selling than buying. Now, there's 100 reasons for that, but technically speaking, that's it. Now, interestingly, though, the number of Americans who applied for unemployment benefits this week skyrocketed to a record 3.28 million as the economy shut down, albeit temporarily. Think about this. It crushed the previous record of 695,000 jobs in a week back in 1982. And just a few weeks ago, we were at 200,000. We were at 50-year lows. It was interesting. The day that news came out, which was Thursday of this week, the markets rallied. Now that goes towards the philosophy that the markets always take things into consideration prior to them happening, and that's the old buy on the rumor, sell on the news type mentality. But in this case, obviously, I think the market took all the bad news into consideration. Do you think some of the earnings or the profit warnings are going to already be taken into consideration, or do you think we're going to see a little bit of a hit here?
Well, I think that even a negative number like the jobs number can be a good thing, because what the stock market has been doing over the last couple of weeks has been trying to price in the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And none of us know what the worst case scenario is. So even if you say, okay, here's a data point, it's incredibly negative, if it's showing us now what that worst case scenario is, then we can look forward and say, okay, how do we come out of this? What are the long-term effects of that?
Yeah, and here's the deal: is it, like we were talking about last week, folks like you and I are saying, let's just get to a bottom, because we know there's going to be a bottom. It's not going to be a negative number. Christina, thank you so much. Christina Gustin, RKG Wealth Management, UBS Financial. I'm Sully. You can find me everywhere at Sully Speaks and at Sully on the Air on all forms of social media: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. San Diego Business Weekend's on the air. News Radio 600 Kogo. Hey there, News Radio 600 Kogo. Welcome to your weekend. San Diego Business Weekend's on the air. I'm Sully. Catch me everywhere at Sully Speaks or at Sully on the Air. Also, bigbizshow.com. Catch me every morning here on the San Diego Morning News with Ted and LaDonna, and over at KUSI. Good morning, San Diego. You know, you've heard me talking about Remodel Works. I endorse Remodel Works and have been the voice of Remodel Works here at Kogo for some time now. And I got a chance to meet George Habib, the president and owner of Remodel Works. And I want to do an interview with him this week, not so much as an infomercial, although it's a fantastic company, and you've heard me say remodel your home the right way, the Remodel Works way, and all of the benefits of that. But he's also a really smart businessman, a captain of industry here in San Diego, understands the real estate market as much as he does the construction market. And I wanted to give him a chance to maybe impart some of his wisdom on us here today. George, thanks for swinging by, man. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Good. George, as a small businessman in San Diego, before we get to the markets and stuff like that, let's talk a little bit about how you guys are faring here, because this COVID virus and, of course, the social distancing involved and us having to stay home, that's affecting everything from restaurants to hospitality, even, construction companies and remodel companies just like yours. Talk about it as a businessman, what's been going on.
Yeah, it's we've seen a lot of different companies take different approaches. This isn't our first rodeo through a crisis, though, and so we're adopting the same approach that we did in 2008, which is we all suffer a little bit so that nobody individually has to suffer a lot. What that means in effect is everybody across the company, depending on their level, has taken between a 20 to 30% salary cut, whether that means reduced hours so that we can spread out the work, or just a flat salary cut. The top leadership I'm taking no salary at the moment. Some of the senior management has taken an even bigger decrease. So this is our way to get through the very early days of this unknown period that we don't know how long it's going to last.
I just, in comparison to 2008, which of course was a financial crisis that started 12 years ago and ended 11 years ago, mirror what's going on now as a business person to what happened then. And do you feel like you're more prepared now? Do you feel like we in San Diego are more prepared now than we were before?
Well, I guess there's two views on that. I'm a very firm believer in the long-term viability of the American economy and the San Diego economy, especially with housing. The last time I was on, I talked about the lack of availability. That's going to be here when we come out of it. So if you have a long-term view, then yeah, things are going to be good. As a business owner, no matter what business you're in, it's really tough to jumpstart the heart of your cash flow once it's had a huge shock like this. So that's where, cash flow is the name of the game, and being able to preserve it is very important. So that's, I would say, is the key difference here.
I say when I do keynotes across the country about negotiation, business, innovation, that cash flow is more important than your mother in a small business. And no slight to my dear mom who listens to the program, but as a small business person, it's very important here. And you look at this stimulus, and you've heard me say, George, and you and I've spoken about this, that small business is the biggest taxpayer in this country and this county. It's the largest employer in this country and this county, and yet many times it's the least incentivized. Looks like this stimulus package is going in a different direction, however, in terms of $350 billion for small businesses and such like that. Now, the question is, obviously, if you take that sort of stimulus, it's a loan, and you have to pay that loan back. How do you take a 50,000-foot view in your own business and say, okay, look, I'm going to take a long-term view and know that the metrics of this economy, especially, and we're going to get to the real estate and construction side in just a moment, but you can say the metrics of this economy are still going to be here after we come out of this. Can I afford, or you have to make that decision. Do I need to bite the bullet here, or should I take some stimulus knowing that I've got to pay that back later? How do you make those decisions, and what do you base those on?
Well, it's a very tough one. A lot of small businesses, mine included, have operated in a completely debt-free environment for the 35 years that we've been in business, for example. And this isn't a natural step for any of us to want to take. But depending on your business and also what types of relief that you can have, one thing that I've been saying is, one thing this bill does not include is some kind of rent relief for commercial properties. And it really needs to have that. That's one of our single biggest overhead items.
It's so interesting company. You say that.
And especially if you look at restaurants, that's what's going to kill them and put them way underwater. So where I'm looking at it is, we think that we are going to bounce back, and we're very confident that people are going to need us for home services. So I'm only going to take the amount of loan that I think I'm going to be able to need to get to the next waypoint. Kind of like in poker when you got to, throw down some chips to see what the cards the next player's got.
Yeah.
So.
George Habib is the president and owner of Remodel Works, remodelworks.com, and you hear me talk about them as an advertiser here on News Radio 600 Kogo, and a very valued advertiser at that. And I'm fortunate enough to be to endorse them and be the voice of Remodel Works here on the station. At the same time, George, really smart business guy. It's so interesting you bring up the rent, because Mike Hess from Mike Hess Brewing last week, who's a close friend, came on the air to talk about the hospitality side and the fact that he had to lay off 80% of his workforce and so on and so forth. First thing he said was the same thing, is that we need some sort of a break, or at least there needs to be some sort of help to the landlords so that they can pass that on to their tenants, right? Because isn't that what it comes down to? Is landlords could give you all the break in the world, but they still have to pay mortgages. And I guess that has to be a bigger picture, right?
Well, I mean, the banks are federally insured. I don't understand why a 30-year mortgage can't become a 31-year mortgage.
Right.
This, in my view, they have the ability to weather that extra year on the horizons that they work on. We don't work on those types of horizons. So that's my personal view, but, I think that landlords and business owners should work together because they have a common interest to go to the banks and not make the mistakes we made in 2008, which was, would you rather have a little bit of money right now and a renter in 6 months, or would you rather have a vacancy and a lot of people that aren't interested in renting to begin with? Yeah,
that's a great point. Hey, let's turn the page over to the real estate market here in San Diego, because something intimately, and obviously you need to know about the financing side and the real estate side because of what you do. And obviously there's a lot of value in people's homes. People are still going to be getting tax refunds and so on and so forth. Because I talk about mortgages every day on the program. I talk about the construction side every day on the program. I also talk about real estate. We have a shortage of real estate, and it's still a great investment. Talk about where we stand right here in San Diego County.
Well, this is where I want to turn the page and really be positive. And I think we could all use a little bit of positivity. So mortgage rates are at an all-time low. They probably will come down further. And so if you are in a position to think long-term and you have a little bit of excess capital, and you don't want to weather the insanity of the markets right now, which can be a little bit stomach-churning, I do believe, and I continue to believe, that either investing in your own home through home equity lines of credit or through buying properties or through building an ADU so that you can rent that out and have some kind of cash flow generation is still a great place to put your money. If you look at California and how we're faring, and San Diego in particular, versus much more crowded cities like Seattle, San Francisco, New York, we're in a great city where we're not going to have this insane density that's going to create this problem that we're probably going to see again in the future. So I believe that San Diego is also very uniquely placed to be a great investment opportunity.
With respect to, I've always wanted to ask this of you, and I don't want you to get political because I know, you're a small businessman here in San Diego, but as far as regulations go for construction, is it getting easier? Is it getting harder? Or is it just about the same these days, George?
Look, you have to know how the system itself is kind of complicated to the point where it paralyzes itself. So you need to know how to work through things like permits. Nobody likes to go and get a permit, but you need to go get permits. The truth of the matter is that the state can only handle so many permitted jobs, and they themselves will, in the corridors have to say to themselves, we need to ease up the regulations. So while the laws are all still there, in operation, small contractors are still able to go to people's homes. And right now contractors, Remodel Works included, are one of the few businesses that are still allowed to go in and finish jobs right now. So I was very happy to see with the current legislation in this crisis that they had the foresight to say, if you don't have a toilet in your house, a company like Remodel Works can come over and make sure that is taken care of, because we don't need you going to a restaurant to use the bathroom.
Sure.
Yeah.
Hey, George, one last question for you, because I've got about 45 seconds left here, but I want to ask this, because just as you were saying that, I just realized you guys are one of the few businesses that are actually having human contact and going in people's homes. How are people doing? What's the general emotional state of most people? I'm sure they're glad to see it, because we're glad to see anybody these days because we have no contact with anyone. But what's been tip of the spear?
We've gotten in touch with all of our employees and all of our subcontractors and all of our clients. We're double checking everyone to make sure that there's absolutely no symptoms individually or in their homes. We don't want to go to a sick client's house, and we don't want to expose sick clients to or clients to anybody that might be sick.
Yeah.
In the homes where we have permission to go and finish jobs or to give an assessment on what the job would take to get completed, we are taking extra precautionary measures. We're trying to in the homes where we're working, we're adding extra plastic to make sure that we're only walking to and from the actual job site. In homes where people are over the age of 65. So
you guys are taking every
extra precautionary measures
Yeah, you're taking every precaution necessary, and I think that's important. What I want to know, really, how are people acting? I bet they're happy to see it. George, thank you so much. George Habib, Remodel Works, giving us a state of the real estate and construction market, and as a small businessman here in San Diego who's going through this strange time. Coming up, San Diego Police Chief retired Shelley Zimmerman on how to avoid scams in this crisis. San Diego Business Weekend, News Radio 600 KOGO. News Radio 600 KOGO, welcome to your weekend. Sully here. San Diego Business Weekend's on the air. You can find us every morning on the San Diego Morning News with Ted and LaDonna. Also, I'm over at Good Morning San Diego on KUSI, and The Big Biz Show, nationwide, coast to coast, every weeknight. 110 million TV homes and 150 radio stations with Russ T. Nails. Thanks again to Christina Gustin and George Habib for swinging by so far. And I wanted to talk to someone who I consider a very close friend, but also someone I respect very much. San Diego Police Chief retired Shelley Zimmerman, who I've spent a ton of time with on a bicycle and a ton of time with on radio and TV. And Chief, great to have you in studio. Thanks so much for taking some time out today on the phone.
I really appreciate you having me come on and talk about what's going on here. And I just want to start out by saying that, we're all in this together, and we all share in the responsibility. And when we're in challenging situations, people often ask, hey, what can I do? How can I help? And in this particular situation with COVID-19, a worldwide pandemic, every single person can share in the responsibility to help keep people safe and healthy by staying home. And if you do need to go out, to make sure that you adhere to the physical distancing rules. And this will all help to flatten the spread and not overwhelm our hospitals and medical professionals. So let's help each other. And together we will save lives. But I will say, Sully, that regrettably, who doesn't help are criminals who will use this pandemic to prey upon others.
Yeah, we got to talk about the scam side. And by the way, your community approach echoes how you ran the police department as the police chief. And I think you must have done a town hall every other day while you were police chief, because it was a different time here in San Diego at the time. But obviously, this sort of crisis mirrors a lot of other times when you were chief. And one of those unfortunate consistencies is scam artists, correct? That's one of the biggest things. Other than us staying safe and healthy and alive, we also got to keep our hands on our wallets here. Talk a little bit about some of the stuff we can be avoiding and some of the stuff we can be looking for.
Yeah, and you're 100% correct. Unfortunately, criminals will always be out there, and they'll use this pandemic to prey upon others, to use the good nature of our public to scam them, then the fears of our public to steal from them. So here are some ways to protect yourself from scammers. First of all, while you're online, and a lot of people now are going online to look for information, but before you click on any link, you should stop and think and always be cautious. When there's any doubt, just do not click on the link. As an example, if you get an email, even from maybe one of your friends, but it has a link to buy COVID-19 testing kits or protection care or maybe even a cure for COVID-19, do not click on the link. There are no known cures right now or testing kits or anything that you could buy online or on the street. Just don't click on the link. And another scam going around right now is that if you get a phone call offering to sell you a testing kit or protection gear or cure from the virus, it is a scam. Do not give your credit card or bank check routing number or any personal information. What you should do is just hang up.
Yeah, Shelley, one of the things you talked to me about, actually, in our many hours of writing down the coast for the Challenge Athletes Foundation, one of the things you talked about was the fact that the IRS is never going to call you and never going to send you an email. They only deal face-to-face or via U.S. Postal Service. And in this coronavirus, one of the things that I read recently is there may be some email scams from the IRS trying to convince people to collect their refunds or file their taxes through alternate websites and such like that, because obviously they're going to use the coronavirus as a scare. That's one of the tried and true things, is people use the IRS to try to gain money. Is that something on your radar these days?
Yeah, it's happening. You're completely correct, and that's the information also we want to get out to all your listeners and to everyone. Please know that government agencies, they're never going to call you to ask for money. So if you do get a phone call from someone saying, like you said, the IRS or the CDC or Social Security or even your local city government, as an example, this is a scam. And also, do not press any keys. What you should do, just hang up.
Really?
Don't fall victim to those robocalls.
Well, on the robocall thing, Shelley, I mean, I get calls every day from area codes that look like where my phone's from. It's similar telephone numbers. And I thought that we had all talked about the fact that robocalls were going to come to, it'll be a cessation of robocalls. But it seems to me that although there's less of them, they're not completely gone away. I'm assuming that's because criminals have figured out a way to skirt the system.
Yeah, exactly right. As soon as we get one information out there and people start, understanding it's a scam, the criminals, they're going to adapt to and look for other ways to scam you. And, another one is receiving a text message indicating that, let's say, and this is going around now, that you could receive, let's say, a free iPhone or an advance on your paycheck. This is a scam. Do not click on the link in the text message, because if you do, the link will likely put malware on your phone, and then you have all kinds of other issues. So,
yeah, exactly right.
People need to be cautious and don't let someone knocks on your door and is going door door to door and says, I have to come into your house or apartment, and I need to check to make sure, that you don't have a virus in there. Don't let them inside your house.
Yeah, exactly. Shelley Zimmerman, San Diego Police Chief, retired. A lot of people want to know what you're doing these days. I know for a fact that you're doing a lot of keynote speaking, and you are also in great support of the mayor and the chief of police here in San Diego. Can you give your community a little update on what you're up to these days? Are you imparting wisdom that you got from serving for so many years for the San Diego Police Department to businesses and other city leaders?
Yeah, no, thanks very much for that. And, it's all about continuing to give back to the community. And, I was very honored to receive a chancellor's appointment to National University, particularly with the topics of leadership and public safety, doing a lot of guest teaching, guest lecturing. And you're right, before this happened, a lot of things got canceled, but doing a lot of speaking across our city and across our country, talking about San Diego and a lot of the successes that we have been able to achieve together. And that was always the theme, is that, what did we accomplish by working together? And I'll just bring it, full circle to go, we can accomplish a lot here again by working together, everyone helping each other during this crisis going on right now.
Hey, Shelley, before I let you get out of here today, let's take a police perspective on this COVID-19 virus, and what do we need to be doing, to keep ourselves out of the way when the police are trying to do their business and such? Because we've got beach closures, we've got trail closures. Obviously, there's only a certain amount of business going to be open. There's a way we can make it easier on law enforcement, is there not?
Yeah, 100%. And, it's adhere, again, to the physical distancing, people calling it social distancing rules. And people do need to stay home. And I'm going to give this analogy because by us staying home, we're going to be able to help everyone else. We'll be able to help the first responders and help keep them safe as they're keeping us safe, and the medical professionals. And, a shout out to everyone who's on the front lines of this, so many that are just coming together. But, here in San Diego and, of course, Southern California and other areas, we know the devastation of wildfires. And so, during a wildfire, we would never think, right, about setting a fire or going outside, having, a bonfire or something like that. So stay home. Don't be a lit match during a wildfire. That's why, we've closed areas where a lot of people were congregating because, there's so much that we don't know about this virus, but what we do know is that it's very contagious and it does spread. So the whole goal is not to spread this virus. And unfortunately, a lot of us don't know if we have it or not. They're asymptomatic for several people. And so we can all help our first responders, our medical professionals, those that are really on the front lines by just staying home. And if you do need to go out, make sure you have the physical distancing. But if I may just say one more thing, Sully, the also sad reality is that for many going to school or for going to work, that was their safe haven. And, people are home now. And so if you know someone that's, you suspect child abuse or domestic violence, please don't hesitate to call the police. And again, we're all in this together. We have to look out for each other.
Chief, thank you so much. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and I'll see you out there on the road once this all gets back to normal, and we'll be in support of that Challenge Athletes Foundation. One more year riding down the coast from San Francisco to San Diego. Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman, Police Chief retired, I should say, and she's still very much involved with the San Diego Police Force. And it's nice to hear straight from the source on what we need to be doing and some of the scams that we should be avoiding. I want to bring up one thing that I talked about this week on San Diego Morning News with Ted and LaDonna, and that's the San Diego County could lose up to 350,000 jobs as a result of the closures caused by the coronavirus. That was in a new report that was released on Tuesday. And the analysis from the San Diego Workforce Partnership says that low-skilled jobs that can't be done from home, such as those at restaurants and hotels, will be most at risk. And I will tell you, I've created a fundraiser through Sully Band Music. If you go to Instagram at Sully Band Music or you go to sullyband.com, we're going to be doing giveaways in support of waiters, waitresses, bartenders, ticket takers, security people all across the county over the next several weeks. And I think we'll be doing a concert series called Sully's Garage, where all my guys are going to be in separate places, separate rooms in their houses, and try to create a show for you guys, but maybe do a GoFundMe page for some of the folks that are suffering from all these closures here. You heard me talk about this week also that 60% of all restaurants have closed. So again, this week we're doing a gift card. We purchased 10 $50 gift cards from the Belly Up that can be used for merchandise, tickets, foods, drinks, so on and so forth. And all you have to do is tag Sully Band Music when you see the post on Instagram. Yeah, the analytics from the San Diego Workforce Partnership say that there's a way to help out. So they're urging workers to consider its Earn and Learn program that offers a training stipend for people to learn new skills. You can apply at workforce.org/COVID-19. I will put that up at kogo.com, keyword Sully. I'll also put it up at sullyband.com. And San Diego Business Weekend continues. Boy, what a busy one, right? I'm Sully. It's News Radio 600 KOGO.
Where'd you come from into my life?
Hey, welcome to your weekend, News Radio 600 KOGO. I'm Sully. San Diego Business Weekend's on the air.
Let's go.
Thanks again to Shelley Zimmerman, San Diego Police Chief retired, who gave us some really good tips on avoiding scams during this COVID virus season that we are in. Catch me every morning at San Diego Morning News here on News Radio 600 KOGO. We're going to do another open phone show this coming week. I don't know which night it's going to be, and I'll try to do another one next weekend, just depending on timing. But we had a lot of great questions coming in this last Thursday, and we had wall-to-wall phones there for an hour. Just of you asking questions about the economy, the stock market, 401k, this COVID mess, and so on and so forth. So happy to do that again. Also catch us at KUSI on Good Morning San Diego, and of course the Big Biz Show. But tonight at 5 p.m. on the air with Sully, Little Tommy, and Rusty Nails, episode 4 on KUSI. We hope you'll join us doing that. Since you've already finished Netflix and you've already read Wikipedia, go ahead and join us on KUSI, and you could do that. I'm so proud to be able to call Mayor Kevin Faulconer up and ask him to join us this weekend again in his busy time, and he's going to spend a little bit of time with us this morning. Mayor Faulconer, thanks so much for swinging by. You've been a busy guy this week.
Great to be back with you. No, thank you.
Hey, first of all, I just want to give you a chance to talk to the city about, actually, it is the weekend. We saw what happened last weekend, and as a result of that, people were packed like it was a concert scene on some beaches. And to your credit, you closed down the beaches. I mean, nobody loves the fact that our beaches are closed. It was almost a necessity. Talk about that and what people need to be thinking about this weekend.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's all designed with one goal: how are we going to keep people safe? And particularly, we saw last week with some of the large public gatherings in the parks and the beaches, it's unsustainable. And so, we want to keep people from spreading it. That's the number one goal. We've had phenomenal people really stepping up over the last week. Yes, it's difficult, but again, it's not only protecting, individuals that are out there, and so no big gatherings, but, also thinking about our public safety personnel, our firefighters, our lifeguards, fire rescue folks that are out there to help keep them safe and on the front line. So, I will tell you the support, even though it's difficult, has been phenomenal from San Diegans. We're normally a city that loves to get outdoors, love to do all this stuff, but this is about taking care of one another right now, and particularly taking care of those that are older and most vulnerable. Don't want to be those that are spreading it. So we're going to get through this. As I always say, we're going to be a city that has really shown an example of looking out and helping for each other. And the way we do that is to slow this spread, is to keep that distance and no large gatherings. And I just can't stress that enough.
Well, speaking of large gatherings, we love to have large gatherings normally at the convention center. And of course, we've been banging the drum about tourism and such like that going forward. But this time we're making use of our convention center in a much different way. Talk about that, because that was some forward thinking on your part.
Yeah, no, it is going to be an opportunity to really help get people off the street, now. Our first priority over the last week was to move some of the folks that were in our bridge shelters that were in a setting that was too close to each other, that couldn't achieve that 6 feet within the bridge shelter. So we did a lot of reshuffling, opened up Golden Hall, working with all of our bridge shelter providers, again, with an immediate goal of let's keep people indoors, let's keep that distancing and that spread. And really what the convention center is, Sully, take this all now to the next level. Let's get people off the street all over the city and other parts. Again, because those that are homeless unfortunately fit the target definition for underlying health conditions. And again, we want to keep people safe. We want to keep them, not outside but indoors. And so the convention center is now going to be a really significant triage operation to get people in, and then to also using the hotels that we have now in partnership with the county into a hotel room where they're safe, not interacting with other people. So we're really, in essence, in San Diego, creating a whole new system for all of the right reasons that I think can be a model for the rest of the state, and is really going to be a model for helping people as quickly as we can.
Yeah, if you think in terms of how quickly this moved with respect to the convention center, I think by Monday morning of this last week, we had almost 250 cots for women on the ground floor of Golden Hall, and then of course the convention center opened. This was a pretty fast moving piece of decision making.
I mean, look, it's an emergency, and we're taking emergency actions. And so, I'm not letting perfect be the enemy of the good here. I can't say enough. We're working with all of our social service providers, whether it's Alpha Project, St. Vincent de Paul, Veterans Village, everybody. And to everybody's credit, Sully, everybody jumped in right away on, hey, let's help people, let's do this. And again, we're talking about changes, particularly with our hotel rooms and the convention center, on a scale that we've never done before, and that's a good thing, because I think one of the things that I'm looking at coming out of this, and we will come out of this, is that we have a much quicker, efficient system that gets people indoors immediately and not out on the streets.
Exactly right. Mayor Kevin Faulconer joins us here on News Radio 600 KOGO. San Diego Business Weekend. San Diego City Council, Mr. Mayor, on Wednesday approved a $6.1 million relief package for city businesses with 100 workers or fewer that can demonstrate, of course, that they've suffered financially from the COVID pandemic. And that's grants and loans from $10,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Talk about that a bit.
Well, it's the recognition, Sully, that you talk about a lot on the show, which is, look, small businesses are our economy in San Diego. They're the backbone. In fact, 95% of all businesses are small businesses in San Diego, and they're hurting right now. And so we really wanted to jump in immediately to say, what can we be doing as a city with all of our economic development funds, some of the funds that we've got from the federal government, to put those to work now for relief. And so, that website just opened up yesterday on Friday, and it's really an opportunity. How can we help sustain operations, retain employees, microloans, direct grants? And it's important that we're doing our part in San Diego. So that's $6 million that I think is going to go a long way for a small business. The great news is you're seeing mortgage relief now from a lot of our banks. Obviously, we passed the eviction moratorium. So everything we're doing is, look, this is a crisis. Let's help people. Let's sustain everything we can to get on the other side of this. And increasingly, as I said, I'm really focusing on our small businesses, because we need businesses for people to come back to when we get on the other side of this.
Well, that's exactly right.
That's incredibly important.
I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, and as I say this all the time, small business is the biggest employer in this county, the biggest taxpayer in this county, and of course, oftentimes the least incentivized. It's nice to see, because we're taking preemptive steps this time. Don't you agree? Back in the financial crisis, we were digging ourselves out of a hole, and I realize this is front and center, but we're taking everything we've done so far in this city has been preemptive, and I think that's important. As far as that goes, what's on the horizon for you? What can you tell us with respect to what's working? How the sausage is being made so far in City Hall.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I mean, really, I can't say enough for everybody stepping up in San Diego, helping each other. Our immediate focus continues to be keep that social distancing, stay safe. We've said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again: flatten the curve. Making sure that we are as prepared as possible in this region. You're seeing what's happening in other parts of the county as they're hitting, of the country, and you're seeing those surges. So everything right now is a public safety focus, really focus on those that are most vulnerable, homelessness and seniors, but also on the track on, making the help and the support, giving businesses the freedom, the flexibility, our leasees,
it's all designed to get through this because we are a vibrant, phenomenally powerful economic city that a lot of our economy shut down right now. And so we have to start looking at how can we help to jumpstart that? What can we do as a city to be helpful? And that's going to be increasingly my focus in the coming weeks.
And let's not forget our first responders. You've done a really good job at working in concert with Dave Nislet over the police department, as well as the fire department and all the other health officials in the city. I think they're doing a great job, and obviously understanding it. It's
well, hey, thank you for saying that, and I'll tell you. I spend a lot of time with them. They're going to work 24/7, right? I mean, they're out there. There's a lot of there's a lot of great support, and we need them out there because we need them answering our emergency calls. Those don't stop. By everybody helps staying at home. That helps lighten the load on them. Our ambulance transports, fire rescue, police. I can't say enough about how everybody's really trying to help them. But we're spending a lot of time keeping them safe because this virus does not, show any favorites. Unfortunately, we've got some lifeguards that have tested positive is firefighters. So we're doing everything we can to keep everybody safe, including our first responders, because I need them out there.
Mr. Mayor, last of all, you're hearing, governors from other states and mayors from other cities talk about the medical infrastructure. How is our medical infrastructure here in San Diego? Obviously, we are a biotech center of the world here, but in your opinion, and top down, how's that looking?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's right. And, I'm spending a lot of time on that in coordination with our folks over at the county, planning for surge capacity, all of the things that we need to plan for in terms of ventilators, others. And to your point, Sully, I mean, I can't say enough about being the epicenter that we are. You've seen the great stories, for example, of UCSD that's working on 3D printing in their School of Engineering that allow parts to, transform one ventilator to work as two ventilators. Just an example. Mm-hmm. The diagnostic test that Thermo Fisher is doing right around the corner, nationwide, worldwide leader. The work that we're doing on vaccines, several companies. So we are the epicenter in San Diego. That's a very positive thing for all of this technology that's going to help not only us here locally, but around the country and around the globe. So I can't say enough about why that industry and all their employees and the brain power, the 24/7 that is going on right now. We are going to be a region that absolutely 100% contributes to stopping this virus ultimately.
Mayor Kevin Faulconer, thank you so much for your time today. Keep up the good work, and thanks for being so generous with News Radio 600 Kogo and the rest of the media outlets over here. Mayor Kevin Faulconer, I can tell you right now, this injection into small business is going to be so necessary in this city because some businesses just aren't going to survive without it. All right. For more information, you can go to sandiego.gov/coronavirus. We'll put that up at our website, kogo.com, keyword Sully. Also, bigbizshow.com. You can catch me everywhere at Sully Speaks or at Sully on the Air. Of course, we'll try to do an open phone show for you sometime this week. We'll keep you posted on that. Christina Gustin, our director. Jared Coleman, our assistant director. Curtis Medevich is our floor director. Me and producer Lady Mary back at Kogo, along with Cliff Albert and the rest of the Kogo News team. San Diego Business Weekend, News Radio 600 Kogo.